welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. Today we're going to discuss an article that was written in Current Affairs by a young lady named Sierra Maloney. The article is entitled Hard Times in Professional Wrestling. And it says, professional wrestling embodies the tension between art and commerce, a tension inescapable in a monopolized industry under capitalism. Oh boy, it's Labor Day, right? So the article was filed on August 26th, 2024, but I saved it especially for Labor Day. So we're not going to talk about this entire article. It's entirely too long, and most of it focuses on OVW and the documentary The Wrestlers and WWE and the antitrust lawsuit that MLW filed. I actually want to focus on one specific passage that's in this article, and that is when she starts to discuss the various wrestlers from OVW, like Hollywood Haley J and Mahabali Shera. And specifically, she builds off of Mahabali Shera's comment that he will not go back to India until he made a name for himself. And then she writes, quote, "But making it is a trap. It fetishizes success in industries where exploitation is baked in, and not just wrestling, but all entertainment industry, where high salaries in the short term are sweeteners and a Faustian bargain. To make it is to see your peers not as comrades or collaborators, but as competition for a limited number of slots. It belittles work made outside of the gatekeeping institutions like WWE as both art and labor. Just the necessary drudge work to prove yourself worthy, itself unworthy of artistic respect or adequate compensation." So she continues from here. So, of course, once you hear something like this, most people will say, yeah, the indies, they should get more respect. They should get paid more. It's like, okay, where is that money going to come from? See, when you start from the premise that people are being exploited, you're never going to end up in the right place. Once you realize that you can't pay people money you don't have, when you realize that in order for art to have value, other people have to value the art. In other words, and she's going to talk about it a little bit later here about in the NFL or college football or whatever, where she says, emerging writers get paid in exposure, which as it turns out is not legal tender. All are told to earn their dues and pay money to make money. Dreams are grist to the mill of billion-dollar conglomerates ground up for profit. Okay, but just because you have a dream or you have a talent doesn't mean that you should get paid based off of your excitement for your work. Other people have to be excited for your work. And once people get excited for your work, you get paid for it. That's important for people to know, that your hard work will eventually pay off if you're good at it. If you're good enough at something, you're going to get compensated fairly for it. Now, she complains that this Faustian bargain that she talked about, she uses Roddy Piper as an example. And this is one of the interesting bits that I wanted to discuss, because Roddy Piper actually made a comment. I think we all know the comment that he made, where he talked about having a lot of money up front, but not much money near the end of his career. I'm trying to find the exact quote in here so that I could read it. Okay, so she says, WWE uses its monopoly power to crush and exploit labor, categorizing its wrestlers as independent contractors while forbidding them from working for third parties and pressuring them to perform before injuries have fully healed. While the top stars are well compensated, WWE typically has dozens of wrestlers under contract who are paid far less. Even for the top stars, as is the case with so many professional athletes, the physical ramifications of their work can be severe, even if their career isn't cut short by an injury. Wrestling, this is a quote, "Wrestling has a tremendous entrance plan. You come in, boy, here you are, you're rock and roll and everything's wonderful," Roddy Piper once said. It's got no exit plan. What would you have me do at 49 when my pension plan I can't take out until I'm 65? I'm not going to make it till 65. Let's face it, guys. Piper died at 91. I mean, 91, 61, I'm sorry. So, people are complaining about wrestler pay and wrestler determinations about independent contractors. Look, here's your options. Either you make less money or you make no money. When you talk about people talk about getting paid, brother, you have to ask the question, compared to what? Oh, high school wrestler who went to college and wrestled for 2 seasons, tore up his knee, and now is going to go to the WWE Performance Center. He's going to be paid substantially less than Randy Orton. Yes, and he should. Why should he get paid anywhere near the same thing? Because they have the same job. Are you kidding me? The guy has no experience and he came in with an injury. Like, there's no way. Like, so many of these NIL talents, they come in with injuries because they've been athletes their entire lives. They come in with injuries and they have no experience whatsoever. You're paying them to train. This is the thing that people don't understand, and this kind of blows my mind. Is like, sure, it is interesting when you have somebody on the roster like Apollo Crews, who's been around for 10 years, but he's not one of the highest paid guys in WWE because they don't really take into account all his stuff on the indies. They really don't care about that. And people are like, that's unfair. That was all, like, that is what got him to WWE. It's all the stuff he did on the indies. That got him to WWE. That got him the position that he's in right now. If he wants to take it to the next level, well, WWE has to give him the opportunity to. But the next level for him would be beyond whatever mid-card pay he gets, whatever that would be. I would imagine it's some 6 figures, okay? That's not shabby. Now, it's not Brock Lesnar money. It's not Roman Reigns money. But he also doesn't draw like Roman Reigns or Brock Lesnar. So why would they pay him anywhere in that realm when he doesn't produce in that realm? And you can say, well, it's the booking's fault. Okay, maybe. But the fact remains, he doesn't draw like those guys, so he's not going to get paid like those guys. Whenever people are talking about money, I'm very interested in what they're comparing it to. And they almost always compare the people they feel are underpaid to the highest level of people paid. But there's a reason why people are paid more. You can't equalize that. Like in the NBA, there's a reason why certain players come right out of high school and get $100 million from Nike. There's a reason why, a guy can get a $200 million contract for, to support or sponsor some team or something. There's a reason why that is occurring. There's a reason why quarterbacks are paid more than, offensive linemen. There's a reason for this stuff. And I know that the Marxist mindset throws this stuff in the garbage, and you're not supposed to pay attention to it. But there is a reason why top guys are paid like top guys, and mid-carders are paid like mid-carders, and rookies are paid like rookies. There's a reason for that. If you're lucky to have a job, then you're going to get paid bottom level pay. All right? You're just here to train. We're trying to see what you can do. You can work your way up, but that's it. If you've got a problem with this, go do something else. And I don't have a problem with that attitude, because that's the attitude that everybody has. If you was to go try to be a plumber, they're going to offer you the lowest pay that they can while you're on being in an entrance, right? Once you become a master level plumber, you can pretty much set your own price. If you've been doing it for years, you can set your own price. Do whatever you want. But while you're a young person with no experience, or an older person who's just starting this career again, yeah, you got to start from the bottom. You're going to get paid less. Now, moving over to the Roddy Piper position. This is where wrestling is like sports. Because in professional sports, money is front loaded to younger talent. You get the big payout. Most people get their biggest payouts, their biggest paychecks within the first couple of years of the NFL or NBA contract. The longer that they play, the older they get, and unless your production is very high, the less your money is going to be. And eventually, Once you're 38 or something like that, you've priced yourself out of the market. So when Roddy Piper is talking about, hey, what can I do at 49? It's like, try being in the NFL. Because those dudes are washed at 30. All right. Some of those dudes is washed out at 26. And I'm talking, they got fresh 18-year-olds every year. So some of those guys are washed out at 24. So it is tight, in terms of wrestlers and needing to have an out plan. And that's one of the things I have been critical, specifically with WWE about, is if you have a long-term successful talent that's been around for a while, there does need to be some kind of, WWE can afford it for a small number of people, a pension plan. I know the Legends contracts kind of help, but people, of course, have bitched and complained, say that they're not enough money, yada, yada, yada. And, of course, it makes you, Bret Hart and a couple of other people say basically it puts you under WWE's umbrella where they control the intellectual property. And some people are not in favor of that, so that's why they don't sign them. Or they'll try to tailor make their Legends contract where they can do things on the outside, like, Rey Mysterio can still do Roots of Fight, and CM Punk can do that, and Bret Hart can still do Roots of Fight and stuff like that, while also having a WWE contract. So these things can be individualized. I do think that somebody like Mick Foley, who was in WWE, made money, was a big star, tons of merchandise, etc. There should be some kind of pension plan for somebody like him when he retires, so that he wouldn't need money and have to go out and wrestle. I know a lot of the older guys, like your Terry Funks and your Dory Funks and those guys, maybe they missed the boat. They didn't stay in WWE long enough. But Undertaker, absolutely. Randy Orton, when he's retired, yes. Triple H, even though, he's in an executive position, if he was to ever just want to formally retire, yes. Kane, under numerous guises, worked in WWE for a long time, yes. Even Hardcore Holly and Rikishi, who are two guys who are under contract for like 10 years under different names. I think that there should be something for those guys. I'm not saying everybody, because those pensions, they get kind of crazy over time, and you can't, take care of everybody. Especially since wrestling is a very transient business where some people come and they go. But somebody like Dolph Ziggler, who was in WWE 15 years or something like that, that's the bulk of his career. I don't see why you wouldn't take care of that guy once he's retired. And I know that he could possibly go to TNA, blow out his knee, and never be able to work again. And typically what they try to do is try to find a producer role for a guy like that, which is typically what they've always done, what wrestling has always done with old wrestlers, is they've recycled them as agents and producers and bookers and yada, yada, yada. So that's typically what they do. And some guys have no interest in that, but that's unfortunate, but that's typically how wrestling has always worked. If you go to a territory back in the day, the guy who's giving you the finish used to be a wrestler somewhere. Maybe even the referee used to be a wrestler somewhere. The guy who's collecting the money at the end of the night was a wrestler somewhere. The owner was probably a wrestler at one point. That was always the out plan for wrestlers back in the day, is that they would just go to another territory and work in the office. If you had any kind of star power or any kind of know-how, you would go work in the office. If you were a guy who, you worked a couple of matches here and there, and now you're like injured and like, I don't want to go back because I don't want to do rehab, well, then you're going to have to go be a janitor or a paper pusher or something like that. But people who had connections and were around for a long time, they always had, landed somewhere. And WWE has plenty of jobs in the performance center and production and all kinds of places for former wrestlers. The issue here is that they don't have enough room for everybody. And then what happens to the people who don't want to work there? Like, like a Bret Hart, who doesn't want to work in WWE. He doesn't want to get up and go to the performance center. The guy's like in his 60s. He doesn't want to do that. So, but he's got so much time under his belt working there. About 90% of Bret Hart's career was in WWF. He's synonymous with the company. I think they should take care of him to a degree, his physical health anyway. yes, he worked his last couple of full-time years in WCW, and he worked for his dad for a couple of years before that. But outside of that, he worked the majority of his career in WWF. Yeah, I think they should take care of him. I think they should take care of Shawn Michaels. Now, there's other people where I would say maybe not so much because they didn't work there that long or whatever. I think AJ Styles is one of the guys that he would be on the fence. You know, a decade in WWE almost, but he spent most of his time in TNA. I don't know, so that's Kurt Angle certainly spent most of his time in TNA. So you would basically question that one, but I think that there should be some kind of out plan for wrestlers outside of production and being a producer and all that kind of stuff. But that is always an option. And you almost never hear people who complain about this stuff, and they're trying to intellectualize why wrestling is exploitative. They never talk about that element, is that wrestlers almost always recycle like batteries. They take them out of the ring, they put them in the office because they know what they're doing. You know, once you get too old, they turn you into a trainer. You get too old, they don't just take you out back and shoot you. No, they find you something else to do. And if you still want to wrestle, you come in, you work a little bit here and there, like William Regal, for a little while. He was coming in and wrestling matches here and there before he finally decided to hang him up. So it's a typical problem for people who get older, is trying to find them something to do and trying to help them take care of themselves when they're not as productive as they used to be. That's a human problem. It's not just a problem of corporations and Hollywood or entertainment. It exists, period. We have as a society have difficulties placing older people in ways where they can continue to be productive, but in their older years, and not be reliant on other people where they can still be independent. This is a human problem. When you're an old farmer, you still have to figure out how to wait. You're still going to get hungry. You still got to get new clothes. You got to go to a doctor or something like that. No different than if you were an old wrestler. If you were an old janitor, you still got to take care of yourself. Our society continues to struggle, and all societies do, with what to do with older people once they are beyond their physical prime and they no longer can produce the same way as they could when they were younger. We have to figure that out as a society. We've created the concept of Social Security where they can retire and collect Social Security, which is what Roddy Piper was talking about it. But he said like pretty much he had beat the shit out of his body and did drugs and steroids, but he didn't mention that. He wasn't going to make it to 65, and he didn't make it. But that's a trouble of our age. We have not figured out how to move older people into positions where they can continue to be productive and healthy and take care of themselves and still be well compensated. Because usually you're not going to be well compensated if you're an older worker. And it's just unfortunate. But that's why, they created the concept of pensions, because they knew that older people are less productive and that would be a problem in the future. But ultimately, my point here is that when someone has the concept of exploitation built into their formulation of a program or industry, they're almost always going to come out on the wrong end of it. To exploit somebody is to take advantage of somebody in a vulnerable position. That's to exploit somebody. When you volunteer for a job, you're not being exploited. You're asking for the job. When you're being paid to train because you know nothing about the job, you're not being exploited. It's a fair exchange. You're taking the risk of learning something that you don't know anything about, running the risk of getting hurt because you don't know anything, and the company is investing in you. Whether they are going to get something out of it or not, they don't know, but they want to minimize their risk. Why would you want to maximize risk? You sign an athlete or an indie talent or whatever, you don't know what you're going to get. whether they're going to draw or not. So you offer them what you think is fair. It's not exploitation, because most people are not coming into these situations in a vulnerable position. They're coming in this situation saying, hey, I want to give this a try. Now, there was a time, I believe, where indie wrestlers were showing up at WWE hat in hand, like, please, sir, can I have a tryout, please, sir? And that was problematic. But that was because those indie wrestlers put themselves in that position. It wasn't WWE coming along saying, hey, you're poor, come work for us for peanuts. It was, no, I'm poor, I will come work for you for peanuts. But the Marxist mindset is that pretty much any kind of job is exploitation, when it's not. Most people apply for jobs. That means you want the job. You're asking the employer for the job. You're trying out for the job. You're in competition with other people for the job. And that was the silly thing to me, too. They say they don't see other wrestlers as comrades and collaborators, but as competition. It's like, well, they're all of the above. They're comrades when you're both feeling like you're getting fucked over or whatever. They're collaborators when you have to work together in the ring. And they're competition because there can only be one world champion, unless it's WWE, then you could be two. And there's only one top main event spot. There's only one ace, I guess you could say. So it's a false dichotomy. Everybody's a collaborator. Everybody's a comrade. Everybody's competitive. These things are natural. You're not going to be able to pull them out of the system. People always want to be the top guy. If it's possible to be a top guy, they want to be. Of course, they want to work together with folks when they can. And they're going to make friends. So yes, you're going to have all three: comrades, competitors, and collaborators. You're not just taught that it's a shark pit, which sometimes it is. It can be, depending on the kinds of people in the locker room. But for the most part, everybody knows that they're working together to make the best show possible and make the fans happy. So that may mean you got to take a Stone Cold Stunner tonight, and you got to take a Stone Cold Stunner for the rest of the week. And guess what? You're a comrade for doing it. You're a collaborator because you're taking the Stone Cold Stunner. And you're competitive because you figure out one day, I'm not going to be taking the Stone Cold Stunner. I'm going to be giving the super kicks or whatever. And Austin did it. Austin took his super kicks. He talked about getting kicked in the mouth by Shawn Michaels every night for a week or something like that when they were working house shows or whatever. I mean, that's how the business works. It's cyclical. Some days you're the guy looking up at the lights. Sometimes you're the guy where the confetti is falling on them. It's just about how the cookie crumbles and how the booking works out and whether you become a draw and a star and all that sorts of stuff. But this article is ridiculous, as usual. Let me know what you guys think, and I will talk to you guys later. Peace out.
No one does it better.